خیلی خوش اومدیم به قسمت دوم انیمیشن های فوق‌العاده جذاب و دوست داشتنی. بریم با هم ببینیم.
Hi guys, I'm Larry, originally from China,
سلام لری.
but currently living in America.
لری چقدر ناراحته.
Well, to say that I'm living in America isn't entirely true.
او لری.
Actually, I've been on my deathbed for many months. I have end-stage lung cancer, and after a long period of
او سرطان ریه داره، خدا بیامرزه. دکتر چقدر خوش تیپه ولی.
post-operative
دکتر همین ورژن خوش تیپ لریه.
radiation therapy, the doctors have let me go home for almost a month now. My cancer cells have metastasized.
سلول‌های سرطانی من متاستاز دادند. اوکی.
And there are no more effective treatments. I was advised to try to enjoy the last days of my life.
دکترش از اون دکترای اهل دله ها. از اون دکترای عوضی و ای بابا ولش کن.
But things didn't go so smoothly. Until the last days of my life.
واسه یه لحظه خوشحال شد لری. دیدی؟
More effective treatments.
واسه یه لحظه لبخند میزنه. نگاه کن اینجا.
But things didn't go
عجب صحنه موسیقی و طنزی.
so smoothly. Until the last days of my life. I still couldn't die in peace.
چرا نمیتونی از روزهای آخر زندگیت لذت ببری؟
My family immigrated to the United States when I was just a teenager.
او با چتر نجات مهاجرت کردین. اوکی.
My parents have only one child, and they've tried to
تک فرزندم هستی. خوبه.
give me the best future possible. We spent all the money we had at that time to move to America.
مامانش چرا چش نداره؟
My parents couldn't speak any English.
به علت حفظ آبروی شخصیتایی که توی این انیمیشن بازی میکنن از نشون دادن صورت آنها منظوریم. عذرخواهی میکنم.
At that time to move to America. My parents couldn't speak any English, and
پول بود بهش داد؟
they relied on me to handle all immigration procedures.
این باباشه؟ چهره همه جز خودش شطرنجی شده.
I grew up with so many expectations and responsibilities that my parents placed on me.
ریش بازی تو دوست ندارم. بهت نمیاد.
My mother is a person who attaches great importance to appearance.
اوه.
During my adulthood, she made sure to remind me every day that I can never let outsiders look down on my family. I must always dress well.
الان مامانت کلاه کاسکت روی سرت گذاشته که بهت یادآوری کنه این نکته رو، ولی مامانش ناموسن خیلی از خودش خوش‌تیپ‌تره.
Use brand stuff and nurture dreams of owning luxury cars.
کاملا راست میگه. لباسای لاکچری بپوش، ماشینای لوکس سوار شو و بز نباش. کل چیزی که به ارث بردی ریش بازی بود، اونم خاک تو سرت به اون ریش بازیت. تو مایه خجالت پدر مادرت بودی، مخصوصا مادرت.
We were so poor when we first got to the US, and my parents had to work hard to send me to college to become a dentist. And I, so used to being told what to do, did not resist.
به خاطر خودت بود مرد. ببین چقدر مادر با شخصیتی داری.
But followed their orders, although many nights I cried silently and blamed them for everything.
مشکلی نداری که کدن، خاک تو سرت. خیلی آرزوشونه جای تو باشن.
The day I completed my studies, became a certified dentist, and opened my own clinic was the happiest day of my parents'
این پدر مادر تو رو دندون پزشک کردن، واسط کلینیک گرفتن، خاک تو سرت.
life. To me, it was just the day I woke up from one nightmare and entered an uncertain future of
هنوز ریش بازی نداشته. خوبه باز. هنوز آدم بوده تو این مقاطع زندگیش.
trying to make as much money as possible to repay my parents' merits. Gradually, with the money I made from my always busy clinic, I bought a more spacious house, and eventually, the villa we're living in now with 2 luxury cars.
اوه، خانواده‌اش پولدار شدن با پول کار کردن این پسر پولدار شدن. چقدر جالب.
I didn't socialize with many friends, and of course I never dated anyone. But that was not a big problem.
داداش با اون ریش بازی که تو میذاشتی، البته هنوز نذاشته، ولی با اون ریش بازی که خواهی گذاشت، منم بودم باد قرار نمیذاشتم.
Because my mother had
حتی با اینکه بچه پول داری.
my marriage taken care of.
اوه چه دختر خوبی هم انتخاب کرده واسط. بنازم مامانت، بنازم سلیقه مادرت. آنچه نکوست از مادر است. به به.
Just like any other thing in my life. The girl I was matched with
ببین دختره از سرت هم زیادیه.
was Laura, a Chinese American. Contrary to my
تازه یه رگ آمریکایی هم هست. تو دو رگت چینیه. بی‌کیفیتی کلا سرت بود.
normal appearance, Laura has a pretty face with long, sleek black hair and a
از سرت هم زیاده لورا.
bright smile. At the first meeting, I immediately liked Laura. And surprisingly, she liked me very much too.
خیلی خانم با شخصیتیه. خیلی.
Well, by that time,
با کمالاته.
my clinic was quite well known locally already, and I had made quite a lot of money. Maybe that was why an angel like her noticed me. We got married quickly. Laura gave me a daughter and a son in just 3 years.
بعد اون شب سری با هم دیگه ازدواج کردن، یه دختر پسر هم آوردن. بچه آوردن، 2 تا بچه آوردن.
She was devastated when her beauty was affected severely after 2 births, and she had an uncontrolled appetite.
بعد 2 بار حامله شدن الان اینقدر تغییر کرد قیافش. یا حضرت.
As my work at the clinic became busier, coming home to my wife nagging about the maid's
داداش یاد این سریال کره جنوبی آلافاسارده دادم میفته. زنش زامبی شده.
stealing things or the neighbor's children being sent to a more luxury international school really just made me feel more stressed. Laura went from a princess to a witch.
چه سمیه. ببینید پسره چه بلایی سر دختر آورده. تو این 3 سال از یه خانم با شخصیت و زیبا تبدیل به این عجوزه شده. همه چی رو از چشم این پسر میبینم. بی ارزه الدنگ.
I felt afraid of coming home, so I spent more time in the clinic, even though I had nothing to do after hours.
او ریش‌بازی رو الان گذاشتی. بعد اینکه زنش جادوگر شد و فلان ریش‌بازی رو گذاشت.
At that time, my clinic had a very hot intern named Dorothy. I accepted her for the position with a high salary.
این دختر رو میخواد استخدام کنه؟ چرا نیشت باز الان؟ تو زن نداری مگه؟ تو بچه نداری مگه؟
Because I was strongly impressed by her appearance during the first interview. The relationship between
همه آتیشا از گور خودش بلند میشه. خلایق هرچی لایق، هرچی بلایی سرش اومد و بیاد و فلان حقشه.
us kept developing after every accidental hand touch when we reached for the clinic equipment, and especially after every time I told my wife that I had to stay in the clinic until late at night, while actually I went to dinner with Dorothy before going to the hotel with her. Such a scandalous story couldn't be hidden for long.
الان حال میده اون زنش بیاد این دوتا رو با هم دیگه بخوره.
I was at the height of my career and was very proud of the fact that an over 40-year-old man like me could date a beautiful 20-year-old girl
دختره تازه نصف سنش هم داره. Oh my god.
like Dorothy. I didn't take any precautions, spent a lot of money just to please my lover without knowing when my wife was suspicious. Things only became illuminated that night Dorothy and I were about to step into the familiar 4-star hotel when Laura caught us right there. My wife had followed me closely and discovered everything 1 to 2 weeks before.
اوه ایجنت 207 بازی در آورده بود. زنش آمارشو گرفته بود. خوش اومد بابا، خوش اومد.
She didn't make a fuss in front of the hotel to save me face. I was a coward.
وای زنش حتی به خاطر از بین نرفتن آبروش میگه جلوی هتل چیز نکرد. سر صدا به پا نکرد. وای پشمام. این میگم این لیاقت این زنشو نداره. لیاقت زنشو نداره. خاک تو سرت. این زنی بود که مادرت واسه انتخاب کرده بود. ریدم تو اون ریش بازیت.
She didn't make a fuss in front of the hotel to save me face. I was a coward, not daring to stand up for my lover, but just standing still when Laura pulled Dorothy into the corner for a
زن رفت دختر رو بخوره فکر کنم.
while before returning alone.
دختر خورد.
That was the last time I saw Dorothy, because she resigned and moved out of town the next day.
نه زنده است ولی داره میره.
As for me and my wife, that night was very long. Laura cried a lot and blamed me for everything. I felt guilty and just wished that she could keep everything a secret
میگه حالا احساس گناه میکردم. بیشتر باید بگیری پای زنتو بلیسی الان تو.
between us because I couldn't face my children and my parents' harsh gaze.
خاک تو سرت.
The next morning,
چی زیرنویس لحظه چی گفت؟
everything a secret between us because I couldn't face my children and my parents'
والدین من همجنس گرایان خشن.
harsh gaze. The next morning, Laura suddenly changed her mind and promised me she would keep everything a secret.
وای چقدر زنش خوبه. چقدر زنش خوبه. باور نمیشه. همه رازا رو میخواد نگه داره به کسی نمیگه.
Of course, I agreed and begged her to forgive me. Not long after that, my mother passed away from old age.
مادرت از دست تو مرد اولاغ.
My
از دست این کارات مرد.
father had passed away before my mom from a serious illness. In her last days, with the little remaining strength, my mother called me a family disgrace for
ماشاءالله به مادرت. ماشاءالله. خاک تو سرت.
betraying my wife. She said that she would never forgive me and would haunt me to make sure I would not betray my wife again.
روح مادرش تعقیبش میکنه که به زنش خیانت نکنه. عجب فیلم هندی شده.
Betray my wife again. So Laura hadn't kept her promise. I was angry, but I was in no
زنش به مامانش گفته بود اوکی.
position to accuse her of anything. After my mother's funeral, I spent even more time at work to avoid everything. Our marriage was never the same after Dorothy. We put on our happy masks to impress outsiders and hide things from our children, but in reality, we didn't have much love left.
همش تقصیر خودته. همش تقصیر خودته. ریدم تو ریش بازیت ولی.
I was a bad father who was absent from my two children's lives, and the only way I could please them was money.
الان داشت با این تفنگی داشت پول میداد بهشون الان اینطوری.
And the only way I could please
واسه منم چند تا بزنم بهم پول در میاد یا نه؟ پول در نمیاد.
them was money. Despite sharing the same bed,
شاید اصلا دور خوابیدن.
I didn't pay much attention to Laura for a long time. Then one day, when I came home unexpectedly early, I was startled to see my wife wearing a tight dress with her hair up, showing off the slim features on her face. Wow. My wife had improved her beauty and physique significantly, but I didn't notice. At that moment, I suddenly felt
نه تو رو خدا نه. نگو زنش.
the need to work harder to save our marriage, and God gave me the best reason to receive 100% attention from her. Disaster struck when I turned 50. I found out I had lung cancer. In the
تا زنش از اون حالت عجوزه‌گری در اومده بود سرطان گرفتی. وای خدا بهت یه فرصت دوباره داد. ولی فرصت دوباره ازت گرفت. چون بازم لیاقت نداشتی.
cancer.
بازم خاک تو سرت.
In the early days of discovering my illness, Laura changed her attitude 180 degrees. She suddenly took good care of me and said more loving words than ever.
ریدم تو این زندگی کسایی که لیاقت ندارن آخه ببین چه زنایی دارن.
She also brought her friends over to cheer
چرا همیشه توی همین سری انیمیشن یه نفر باید شبیه من باشه؟ البته اینکه عینک نداره انیمیشن قبلی طرف عینک هم داشت.
me up. Among them, Laura seemed to be especially close to Dave, her barber, and his wife.
خوبه.
To be honest, I didn't really like him because he seems unreliable.
درست تو غلط کردی اون پسر خیلی هم با کلاس از اون باید خوشت بیاد. تو لیاقت زن تو نداشتی ولی شاید
I completed my will, dedicating all of my fortunes to my wife
یه کار درست تو کل زندگی کرده باشی همین بوده. کل ثروت رو به همسرت داری میدی.
and children. The past months, I had to rely on others to take care of me. Just yesterday,
داشت کل زندگی تو سربار دیگران بودی.
Laura said she was going to the supermarket and asked Dave to come over to look.
چرا اونطوری داشت میرفت؟
Laura said she was going to the supermarket and asked Dave to come over to look after me.
خیلی خوبه این دیوه الان بیاد بکشدش. بالش رو سرش بذاره خفش کنه بعد با زنش ازدواج کنه. من بودم همین کارو میکردم جدی میگم.
After Laura had left for about 30 minutes, I was so thirsty. I called for Dave, but he didn't answer. I became worried, wondering what that guy was doing in my house. I decided to go to the kitchen to get water myself.
رفته پولاتو داره میشماره بدبخت.
But as soon as I exited the
این الان 50 سالشه بچه‌ها تو این تصویرشات باورتون نشه ولی 50 سالش هست و سرطان هم داره.
door, I was drawn to the loud giggles from the next room, one of which was Laura's voice. Wondering why she was back, but didn't come into my room to inform me as always, I leaned against the wall to reach the door of that room.
نه الان نه.
I heard Laura screaming softly,
الان نه.
as if muffled. I immediately opened the door, but before my eyes was an unbelievable sight. In that room, Laura and Dave were doing exactly the same things Dorothy and I did.
باز خوبه دقیقاً میگه کاریو داشتن میکردن که منو دوروتی میکردیم.
I was dumbfounded at what was happening.
اینا همش تقصیر خودته.
And could only shout Laura before slumping to the floor. When Dave saw me, he panicked and hurriedly grabbed his clothes on the floor.
الان لباساشو از زمین برداشت اوکی. تو انیمیشن دیگه نمیتونستن نشون بدن بچه‌ها ولی لخ بود.
But Laura's attitude was unbelievable. She didn't seem scared, but looked me in the eye and smirked before saying,
بازم اون پاز عجوزه‌گریشو برداشته بود.
"Oh, Larry, finally you found out. God, I had to try to be so noisy as possible for a week, but couldn't catch your attention. Finally, you've seen what you deserve."
دقیقاً لیاقتت همین بود.
Now understand the feeling of being betrayed in marriage. It's just so much worse though, because you're dying.
هیچ وقت به همسرتون خیانت نکنید هیچ وقت.
And your wife is blatantly having sex with another man in the house you bought. As she spoke, she laughed like a mad woman. Everything faded before
زنشو بودیم پسر دیگه.
my eyes. I didn't know whether it was because of tears or it was my final push to the grave. I don't want to live another day, guys. I just want to die right now.
بمیر.
Please give me an advice.
بمیر.
I know I don't deserve any forgiveness or support, but at least help my kids get out of this circle of hatred.
هم رید تو زندگی مادرش، هم خودش، هم زنش، هم بچه‌هاش. نتیجه اخلاقی داستان که هیچ وقت به همسرتون خیانت نکنید. تحت این شرایط. اگه از این جور ویدیوها دوست دارید حتما لایک کنید ویدیو رو و واسم توی کامنت‌ها بنویسید. مرسی که تماشا کردید.